Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of That Sounds Terrific. I'm your host, Nick Koziel, and for Episode 1, we're featuring the Alzheimer's Association, an organization I currently work for and a cause that I love to support. Currently, we are changing the structure up just a little bit, and I hope that you enjoy the multiple interviews that we have, and we're going to start off with what we call a mission moment, featuring someone living with the disease and that walked in our Walk to End Alzheimer's, Jim Gully.
Hi, I'm Jim Gully, and I live with Alzheimer's. I was diagnosed with the disease 6 years ago. My dad had the disease, and so did both of his parents. I participate in the Walk to End Alzheimer's because I want our two kids and every child born in the next generation to be free, liberated from the very difficult life that besets more than 6 million Americans, and those who, like my wife Rose, care for us. Thank you very much for all that you can do to help us.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. I am your host, Nick Koziel. I am super excited today to have two people from the Alzheimer's Association, which is near and dear to my heart because I'm also currently working here. So Teresa and Maureen are joining me. Maureen's our committee chair for the Walk to End Alzheimer's in Rochester, and Teresa's our executive director of our chapter here in the Fingerlakes in Rochester. And thank you so much, ladies, for being on the show.
Yeah, good to be here. Having us, Nick.
So I just wanted to start out and talk a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association. I thought maybe that we could start with you and just talk a little bit, give us a little background of, where we've come from and kind of where we're at now with the walk and the association overall. So
That's a great starting point, Nick. As a matter of fact, it was 40 years ago this year that a small group of families got together and said they didn't know where to turn. They had all had a loved one who had been given either a firm diagnosis or a doctor had said, well, your loved one might be dealing with some memory issues. They could have Alzheimer's. It's possible it's some sort of a dementia. And none of them understood what that meant. So they got together and they said, there must be some way for us to support each other, to support our loved one through this, because we really don't have any clue what we're going to be dealing with and what we're facing. And so this small group of families decided, you know what, I wonder if there are other people in this community who might be in a similar situation than we are. And so they decided to take out a very small ad in the local newspaper, in the Democrat and Chronicle, back in the days when little ads were in the back of the newspaper. And they said, we're going to get together on Thursday night at the Rundell Library. If there are any folks in this community who don't know quite where to turn, we're going to get together and we're going to talk about our loved ones and how to support them as they're dealing with this diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. So Thursday night came and 80 families showed up that night. Amazing. Which told this group of people that if there were 80, there had to be so many more in the community who were walking this journey in isolation. And that was our very first support group. Well, and that's how we were founded.
I love that. I love that we were founded through support and education. And I think that, me starting in this role only a few months ago and being a fundraiser, a lot of people see, the walk and what we do as a fundraising opportunity, but it's so much more than that. And it goes back to the roots. Like, we're a support organization. We're here about, community support and education. So I love that we started out that way. I didn't know that story. So another reason why I like doing the podcast is I learned so much even about the organization that I work for. And what kind of got you personally involved, if you don't mind me sharing that?
Absolutely. So, and I do want to go back, and I want
Sure.
to piggyback one more comment
course.
about the whole. So, the first support group was formed 40 years ago, and organizations go through changes, transitions, transformations, metamorphosis. Our association, its building block is based on support groups. We have dozens of support groups in our community, in our 9-county region, that take place any given day of the week. Support groups for caregivers, support groups for people living with dementia. We have a men's support group. We have support groups for populations that are maybe at higher risk, for example, those who are African American. We have a Spanish language support group. We have a support group that we work with LGBT community as well. So we're pretty proud of the fact that the very first service that we delivered is still at the cornerstone of what we do today.
That's awesome.
So I have spent my career in human services, but when this opportunity arose for me to be able to work with the greatest generation in America, I said, "Oh my goodness gracious, I've got to jump on board, and I've got to see how I can help every day to be able to get into this fight, roll up my sleeves, and to help this cause to build programs and services for the families that are affected." Over the years, I cared deeply about a lot of folks that I had encountered on my professional journey through working in programs for elders. But unfortunately, I also face my own personal journey as well today, and I don't really know of a family that I've met in the community who hasn't somehow been impacted by Alzheimer's disease or any type of other dementia. So I get up every morning and I know exactly where I'm supposed to head. And at the end of every day, when I put my head on that pillow, I think of the things that I could have done better or that I should be doing more of. And that just gets me motivated for the next morning.
How prevalent is it now?
That's a really good question, Maureen. The statistics say that over 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. In New York State alone, we have over 410,000 people that we know of in the state of New York that actually are impacted by a diagnosis. And then if you look at the number of people who are taking care of those 400,000 New Yorkers, it's over 1 million people in the state. So, and those are the numbers that we believe we know. When you think about the risk of dementia, it is based on age. And so when you're talking about this generation of Americans who are facing the age of greatest risk, which is 65 years old, we all know that baby boomers is one of the most growing populations in this country right now. And unfortunately, as this population ages, every year that goes by, the risk for dementia increases. And if you think about that and the fact that Alzheimer's is the only disease in the top 10 public health issues in this country today that has no cure and no prevention, that is going to cause this to have staggering numbers. We have to stop the trajectory. And that's why it's so important to have Alzheimer's science supported, which I know you have been such an ambassador for talking about clinical trials and science and how important it is to participate, because without the science side of this, there's no way this caregiver system, the cottage industry of family caregivers in this country, will not be able to continue to sustain supporting Americans living with Alzheimer's.
Oh yeah.
So Maureen, I mean, this is a good segue into asking you, how did you get involved with our organization?
Well, I'd always heard about the Alzheimer's Association through my work as a reporter for WROC-TV, a longtime reporter and anchor there. So I was very aware of the organization and its role in the community. Not extensively, but I was aware. And then, unfortunately, my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in late 2010. And that launched us into a journey that, will forever be with me. So not soon after my father was diagnosed, actually, I remember very vividly the second opinion. And the wonderful doctor that we worked with handed us material from the Alzheimer's Association. Talked a lot about quality of life. At that point, my father was early stage, but he said, focus on your quality of life. And the Alzheimer's Association will help you. And so that began our connection. We used a lot of guidelines. We read all the literature from the Alzheimer's Association. I mean, it's just the wealth of information that the association gives this community is invaluable. And we used a lot of that to plan what to do about support services, financial planning, awareness of symptoms, signs of trouble, and that's how it began. And when my father passed away in 2016, there was just no question. My siblings and I all said we have to fundraise for the Alzheimer's Association primarily because my father participated in research that we found out through the Alzheimer's Association and his doctor. This was the ADNI study, which is still going on, and it meant a lot to my dad and my mom, who has since passed away, because he wanted a cure. I mean, he wanted a cure, knowing that the study he was participating in would not benefit him, but he wanted to know that there was going to be a day when somebody would be called the first survivor. And he certainly hoped, God forbid, that it wouldn't be one of his children. We wouldn't be diagnosed at all, but if it were, it would be treatable and curable. And so that's why he did it. So there was a question for my family that we would get involved in fundraising to make sure the local chapter can continue its great work.
Yeah, it's really important that people like you do continue to carry that torch.
Yeah.
And, I applaud your family and your father for doing that, for providing, potential answers for the future.
Yeah.
And I think that is a terrific thing. The hardest part about a disease like this is it affects so many different people in so many different ways. I mean, we touched on a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about that experience?
How the disease impacted my dad?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, when in the months leading up to the diagnosis for my dad, he was, he was exhibiting what I thought were signs of depression. I thought at one point maybe his hearing aids weren't working well. He was quiet. He'd lost interest in reading or doing crossword puzzles, which he liked. He didn't participate in a lot of conversation the way he used to. And this was sort of episodic, kind of not consistently, but it was noticeable. We went to Ireland, a family trip to Ireland, and he got lost in the hotel and was really agitated and anxious about that. They were renovating, my parents were renovating their home, and I had popped in one day, and the contractor pulled me aside to just say, hey, your dad has been asking about this, and this, and to tell you the truth, I don't understand what he's telling me or what he wants, and that was very alarming to me. My dad was a lifetime educator, smart fella, friendly, and that people weren't understanding him was strange. One time I was out to eat with him, and a friend of his came over to the table to say hi. And you could tell I looked and I could tell that my father did not recognize this person, and he was 72, and it was just a strange moment. And he lost interest in card playing. He would end games early. He got lost. He didn't get well, I don't really know what happened, but he did fail to pick up my mom at an appointed time. He had dropped her off. She was going to go to some event. He was going to pick her up. He never showed up. She came home. I was working. She called me, said, I don't know where your dad is. And he finally, 2 seconds before we called police, and I'd gone out to look for him, he arrived home. And he had I was in the wrong parking lot, and he seemed nonplussed about it. But that was when my mother insisted that he go and see a doctor. And within a month, he was diagnosed.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that. I know that could be difficult, and we appreciate it because I wanted to make sure we did share things like that because not everybody knows, the warning signs or what to look for, and sometimes we just kind of make excuses, right? Thinking that it can't be anything serious. So one of the great things about the association, and Teresa, maybe you can talk a little bit more about this, is the 1-800 number that we have and the support that we have for anything. You can call that number to answer any questions related or even unrelated to the disease. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So our 1-800 number is actually available 24 hours a day. It is supervised by a group of licensed social workers. So every person that answers that phone understands what you're sharing with them and can speak to you from a clinical perspective. That's really important to the Alzheimer's Association. It's one of the things that we value is that we not only have expertise, but we have credibility and we have experience and understanding. And competence behind everything that we advise to families and counsel families on. Oftentimes the phone calls are coming more in overnight when the caregiver is not sleeping because their loved one has kept them up all night, or it might be the only time that they have an opportunity to be able to speak privately about the concerns that they're having. We also get phone calls from people who are worried about themselves, who may be looking at some of the things that they recognize in themselves that they're not willing to share with others, but they do see. One of the most common early warning signs is that compromised executive function. Someone who always balanced their checkbook to the penny their whole lives, and now all of a sudden they don't know how much money they have there in their account, or they're going to the bank regularly and taking out big sums of money. Or they're buying things that they never would have bought before and doing some extravagant shopping. That is one of the things that people do call our 1-800 number about. We're also very proud of the fact that we have a translation line. So if someone calls, we can find up to 200 different dialects and language lines. And then we will connect our families to them. So we really are available to all Americans, no matter what their culture is, their dialect, their language, their primary language, their second language, things like that. And then the folks on the phone can also help to connect them with local resources. We have something called the Community Resource Finder. So if somebody calls from Rochester and says, can you tell me where the list of nursing homes that have memory care programs. They can pull that up through the Community Resource Finder. They can also refer them back to our staff who come in during the day, and the staff can follow up and send them actual formal lists in the mail of the different facilities that might be in the community. I mean, there's so many. The resources are absolutely limitless, and they're current. The kind of literature that comes out on Alzheimer's every single day is just astounding. And to have to keep up with that current information and to comb through all of the journals and the files that are out there would be an impossible task for a chapter. But to have a nationwide network of chapters and contact center and our scientific team and everyone on the research side to be able to get that information that's actually accurate. Because if you go on the internet, there's no telling what you're finding out there. Yeah. So we always say go to a trusted resource. The Alzheimer's Association will never steer you wrong. We will never give you information that is not evidence-based and evidence-informed. Yeah. We pride ourselves in that. And so the 1-800 number is really that cornerstone of the information resource line of the Alzheimer's Association.
And we're definitely going to have that number in the notes. And if you get nothing out of this podcast whatsoever, other than this, then this is the most important thing, because we will be able to help you. You call that number as a caregiver, as someone, like you said, that thinks they might have Alzheimer's or dementia. We're going to steer you in the right direction. So I think it's extremely important that you, even if you have a sneaking suspicion about a loved one, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
And some people like really are afraid to have that conversation. Your father was an educator, very smart person. The last thing that you want to do is approach somebody who prides themselves on their intellect, and you don't want to insult them, but it's more out of love that you do that, to see, what we can do to maybe help them, right? Or, maybe it's great and they don't have dementia, they don't have Alzheimer's. Joining me right now is Jan Vanderblink of the Hilliard Corporation. He's the chairman and president,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And also he's the chair of our Walk to End Alzheimer's committee here down in Elmira and Watkins Glen. So first of all, I got to thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It was a great event and great weather, and we had a good day at the track.
Right.
So it was good.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know much about this area, we for years have been in Eldridge Park, in Elmira, and we got the opportunity through Jan and Michael Print up at Watkins Glen International to host the event there.
Yes.
Which was great. Beautiful day.
It was, and we walked the NASCAR circuit 2.5 miles and had over 200 people, and it was a great day to, during the week, we're working on that for next year, but it was a great start to the having it at the track, and I think it'll work out well in the future for us there.
So Jan, you're very involved in the community. You're very involved with us. I wanted to talk a little bit about your why, like why the Alzheimer's Association, why the walk.
Well, in particular, Nick, as I think as you know, my mother suffered from Alzheimer's and ultimately passed from it. And, it was an excruciating time for her, obviously, and for the family. Went on probably at least 5 years, looking back, probably more, like 7 to 10, frankly, from the start of it to the end. And, as it got worse, it was extremely difficult to take care of her. And, the person we knew and loved, always loved her, of course, but, disappeared basically. And she ended up in a skilled nursing facility for the last year of her life. And, it was just horrible to see what Alzheimer's did to her and, frankly, to the family. It affected not only her, obviously, but everybody else, my sisters, my father, and the extended family as well. So, once she passed, I wanted to remember her always, obviously, and try to do something to help others who are afflicted by this terrible disease. And so, obviously, no better thing to do than hook up with the Alzheimer's Association. It's the national organization to help in this fight. And it's been great working with you, Nick, and Teresa and Bonnie and the rest of the crew to get the walk done this year at the track. And it felt very good to me to give back a little bit to people who suffer from this and try to help those down the road. So
yeah, we thank you, Jan, and thank you for sharing your story, because it's very important for my listeners and our community to understand what people are going through. Yes. And there's so many different ways to help us. It's not just the walk and the fundraising, but we're looking for committee members. We're looking for marketers. We're looking for all sorts of different people to kind of come to the plate and help hit a home run and hopefully find that cure. So other generations, I think you've even said this, you do this so future generations don't have to.
It's a very tough disease. There's no known cure, I don't believe, and working on some treatments, but it's a really tough one. And so too much attention to this is just enough to try to get a better result on the road. And it continues to afflict just about every family that we know. And so whatever we can do to help is well worth our time.
Right. And Hilliard Corp was a premier sponsor, and it's a family thing as well. You had your own family team, so there's just so many different ways that you got involved, and we do want to thank you for that involvement and for supporting the cause.
Very welcome. No, it was an honor to do it, and it really makes you feel good to give back and really help this whole situation. I'm positive what we're doing will help down the road. So it was an honor to be part of it this year.
As I'm listening to, one of the things that was so beneficial to me as a caregiver, and I know to my mom, and to my dad, we were never alone. The knowledge that really, despite the tough journey, that we were never alone, was a lifesaver. That the Alzheimer's Association is one phone call away. That there's an entire community of people who also benefit from the Alzheimer's Association that you can also rely on. This incredible network, and it meant all the difference in the world for my family. Just to know that if we were in trouble, we could call and help would be available was invaluable to us. It's I really, that to me is just, knowledge is power. But being able to say I don't know and reach out, or I can't do this and reach out and know that you would be helped is really great. It's a hard disease,
Yeah.
And that also helped us have some really good years. We knew what was ahead, but we had some really good years with my dad.
That's a really big fear for a lot of people, being alone in something, in a fight for anything, being alone. And I think that's great that we were able to be there for you and your family. And I'm hoping that people, in the audience will also take advantage of that. If they think they're alone, they're not, right?
They're not.
So I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit how about part of my show is trying to get people involved in the organization, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about like the Walk to End Alzheimer's. Maybe you can talk a little on that, and then address other ways that people can volunteer or give back and get involved. So why don't we start with the walk, Maureen? And
the walk.
Yeah.
It's still on a high from the walk.
It's still going. I know,
yeah, it is.
I know the event is technically over, but it's still going.
Well, the Rochester Walk to End Alzheimer's is a decades-long tradition now. Our latest version just happened in October at Frontier Field in downtown Rochester. There were probably a good 1,000 or more people there, which was great. After the pandemic year, it was great to see everybody back in person. And we raised a good $286,000, and we're still kind of inching toward the goal, but that was incredible. These are tough fundraising years, given the pandemic and just given the fact that everybody's sort of in need. But this tells you about the generosity of this community, the resolve of families and caregivers and doctors and researchers and business people and community stewards and civic groups. I mean, they were all there. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful event. Can't say enough about it. And I'm really grateful and so thankful for everybody who donated.
Yeah, it was my first year, my second event, the first really, really big one, and I had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
What's great about the walk is, on the committee level down to an individual walker, you can always be involved, and it is centered around, raising awareness and funds to help us with, supplying, support for the community. How does one get involved, Maureen?
Call me. Call the Alzheimer's Association. We always could use the help, all volunteers, an army of volunteers. The more, the better, because we thrive on ideas to make the walk fun and accessible and educational and a successful fundraiser. And so the more the merrier. There's so much to do to put on an event like that every year. So we begin in the winter. So now is a great time to let people know we're already planning for next year's event. And we have a committee. We have a committee that handles everything from logistics to marketing, advocacy, and we plan this walk with your help. It's a great team. But we could always use volunteers. This is how we thrive and how those events become so successful, and you can tell. And it's a lot of fun. It is. It's a great feeling knowing that you're doing something to further a great cause, and you're making a difference. So.
No, I love it, and a lot of the reasons why I joined the organization is because you feel kind of part of a family,
Oh yeah.
Even from the interviewing, like it felt like I just really wanted to be involved. And as far as individual walkers and teams, like there's so many different ways to fundraise, and that's what I like about the organization is there's a great flexibility. Everything from just calling up your family and saying, give me $50, mom, or whatever, to like we've had teams that go to restaurants and have spaghetti dinners, or ask for help from matching gifts from corporations and things like that. So the walk is really a great way to not only get the word out, fundraise, but also share in a couple of moments with people that are going through the same thing that you're going through. And one of the most moving moments for me was when you were addressing the crowd and talking about the different flowers and what each one represented, and you could see, and people were like really moved by that ceremony, the Promise Garden ceremony at the walk. But there's so many other ways to get involved, Teresa, and I know that we probably don't have time to go through everything, but I just think our organization is so flexible with the variety of different things that you can do. What are some other ways that people can, give their time, talent, and treasure?
Sure. So, thinking about how we were founded with a group of volunteers. And that is still what we do today. Every single day we have dozens of volunteers that partner with staff and with our community and our donors to be able to keep the mission alive. I was thinking, as Maureen was talking about the walk, I was thinking about the experience of the day and how joyful it was. It was joyful because this group of strangers come together at a point in time, over almost 1,100 of them at that day, just at the Rochester walk alone. And then in our three walks, there were even more. We had over 500 in Canandaigua. We had over 200 in Watkins Glen. Almost 2,000 people come together at a point in time, and they do it for one reason, because they want to find hope. They, as you said earlier about the first survivor, they want to come together to be able to not only find hope, but to hopefully change the course of this disease in some way, in some small or large way, whether it's through volunteering for the entire season to get ready for this big event, whether it's showing up that day and making a contribution. We saw more small children, not just kids and teenagers, but little children this year than we've ever seen in our history, because people are talking about it. They're celebrating that generation of people who are being impacted, and they're saying, we want to keep their memories alive. We want to change how we're going to look to the future. We're going to look to the future with hope, as opposed to worrying about whether or not we're going to die of this disease. And so that is really why people come together. And if you think about the volunteers, they really are the heart of the Alzheimer's Association. And so there's so many of our volunteers that day thanked me for the opportunity, and I'm just always so humbled by that, because I don't understand. I mean, they're the ones that are giving of themselves to be able to really have this type of a profound impact. But they're showing gratitude because they feel good about how they've left. They're grateful for having the opportunity to have the impact, to make a difference, and to be part of something so much bigger. So thinking about other volunteer opportunities, one of the things that we do a lot of is we influence legislation at the federal and state level. We try to impact the increase in funding for science, for Alzheimer's science. At this point, we are 3.1 billion annually for Alzheimer's science for the National Institutes on Health, which is wonderful. We still have a ways to go because we still have to continue to support the scientific community. But if you think about a fundraiser like the Walk to End Alzheimer's, it supports not only the day-to-day work that we do in the community, but it also supports the scientific side of our mission as well. It's a full mission type of a donation. And the Alzheimer's Association is actually the single largest private funder of Alzheimer's research in the world. The only two other funders that are bigger are the governments of China and the United States government. So that is something that we are proud of, but we still have a long ways to go because we need to continue to support the scientific community to be able to not only find a cure in basic science, but also to provide the clinical side of the house and find the treatments that are going to impact, any of those of us who have walked this journey on a personal level know how challenging it can be for the person with Alzheimer's and those who care about them. No day is the same as the other. The journey can be sometimes very complicated. Sometimes the journey can bring moments of joy. Sometimes it can be very heartwarming. But ultimately, it always has a very sad ending to the story. But at the same time, we know that because of our volunteers, the people that are out there with us partnering to deliver programs and services, that we can be there for folks on their journey. Our support groups are run by volunteers. Our educational programs, many of them are run by volunteers. Our advocacy arm is manned by a group of ambassadors who storm the Hill in Albany. They storm the Hill in Washington, D.C. And you can betcha the voice of the volunteer advocate is changing the world. Yeah. That's where it's going to happen. I've seen it happen in congressional private rooms where a member of Congress will sign on to an increase in funding for Alzheimer's because they heard from the person who's living with the disease, sitting right there at that table. So there are countless opportunities. We love our volunteers in all aspects. Some of them are with us throughout the year, running support groups, delivering educational programs, and some of us are here seasonally. They'll join your committee, they'll help with logistics, they help with sponsorships, they try to recruit team captains. We also have coming up in the spring our gala, our 40th anniversary gala, which I know you're going to touch on in a bit. We're always looking for people to help fill that house, to be able to generate some additional revenue to support the event so that we can continue to grow and expand our services in our community. Because even with all the people that we served, and over the last 18 months, our chapter had almost 15,000 interactions in our community with regard to programs and services. We have over 50% of those services are delivered by volunteers, but we still have so many people that we have not touched yet.
I mean, if people are reaching out in that large number, that tells you, I always, my rule of thumb is there's 10 more for each one. And that's incredible. It's incredible. There's such a need.
Yeah, it takes a lot to run an organization like us, but it's an organization full of passionate people, passionate volunteers, and there really is a place for anyone that has time or wants to share a talent, or obviously who wants to fundraise or give back in the monetary way as well. Mentioning the gala, there's a bunch of other events like the Longest Day and things that we do. So there's a way for everyone to kind of fit in and give back a little bit, even if it's on the day of the walk or the day of the event where you're just sort of coming in and helping to set up. I mean, that in itself, or tear down, like at the end of the day,
the cleanup,
cleanup part. I mean, we have so many great partnerships with colleges and local organizations that'll come and just help us with the day of, which that helps so much. Did you want to touch a little bit more about the gala and where that kind of came from, the history behind the gala, and what that's been, how that's impacted us?
Sure. So for the last, I want to say, since the beginning of our history, we've had an annual gala, and the gala is intended to bring in revenue and raise awareness for our cause. And it's been a wonderful journey. This year, because it's our 40th anniversary, we decided to take it to the next level. We're hoping to have fill a bigger house. The event's taking place on May 19th at the convention center, and it's been 2 years since we've been physically together because of the pandemic. So our hope is that our community will come out, they'll join us, they'll celebrate our past, they'll support our present, and they will join us in hoping for the future at that gala. And our desire is to once again raise more money to support the cause, but to commemorate our founders, to talk about our successes and the things that we've done well in our community. We have a lot of things that our chapter has done that we actually are very proud of. We were one of the first chapters in the country to actually have a public policy arm that was a model of its kind at the time. We work with really wonderful special populations, and some of our programs have been models for others to follow. We have initiatives that reach into faith communities, including the African American community. We have an Amish Mennonite program. We have rural programs. We work with inner city populations. And so the gala will be an opportunity for us to culminate our 40 years of service by talking about it with our constituents, having folks talk about their own personal stories. We'll have some mission moments. And we have the chair of our gala sitting right here with us at this very moment.
Actually, I'm getting
excited
listening. Excited listening to the idea to review the history of this chapter and really the amazing things that have. To me, that's great because it's a great way to look forward. What can we build on?
Right.
And the truth is that the local chapter has done so much so well, and the proof is in the amazing volunteer force, the incredible network of businesses that support this organization, and it's very exciting.
Joining me today is Shelby Ascroft. She is one of the committee chairs for the Walk to End Alzheimer's out of the Fingerlakes. And thank you for being with me, Shelby.
Thank you for having me.
Shelby's going to talk to us a little bit about why she walks and why she got involved with the committee.
Oh, well, there's just so many answers to that question. The reason I first got involved was that my husband works for the national sponsor, Edward Jones, and he has been wanting to give back to his community and wanted to really be part of this walk. But with his work schedule, he didn't really have a ton of time. And it worked out that my son was going into kindergarten, so the last kid that was at home. So I was able to devote more time to that. And, we're a family unit, so I took that responsibility on for him. And the first walk I went to, it was just a downpour of rain. It was insane rain. And what I noticed is that no one at the walk seemed to be bothered by it. They were smiling, they were happy, they were just so honored to be with one another and to share their experiences and to be hopeful with one another. And that kind of got me hooked. And I kind of tapped into my family history. My grandpa died with dementia. He was a great role model in my life and cared for him deeply. And I have a couple other distant relatives that have been affected by Alzheimer's. And so that got me really hooked. And then what put me 100% invested is the stories that I hear, the people that I meet, the events that we go to, and just seeing that spirit of hope and the celebration of life. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your grandfather and your family members, but we are super excited to have you join us every year and to lead. Your walk was the first walk experience that I've had in person. So, and I just remember exactly what you're saying, right? People really excited to be there and to come together for this cause. What would be your favorite part of the walk?
I think My favorite part, it's hard. I mean, as a committee member, my favorite part is when the walk starts and everyone starts walking because, wow, we did it. We made it to the end and it was successful. But as a person watching, it's seeing those faces come across the finish line. There's tears, there's smiling, there's laughter, and just these beautiful families all together wearing their shirts for who they're walking for, their why. And it's just such a beautiful moment. It sounds corny, but it really is just incredible to see those faces.
Awesome. If people like listening to the episode want to kind of get involved in the Finger Lakes or really, in any chapter area, like what are some things that you think are good ways to start?
Well, we are always looking for volunteers to help us. The more hands make less work, right?
Right.
So one way is to go to the walk website, which is alz.org/walk. Then you can do your find a walk, and then there's a section there where you can click and how to volunteer. So that's a great way. You can always contact Julie Demersman. She is our chapter host, and she's phenomenal. And the walk would never happen without her. And of course, someone can always email me, and I can get them in the correct spot that they need to be.
Awesome. So there's a variety of different things, and I love Julie because she's so good at like rallying people to the cause. But there's so many different ways to get involved. It's not just putting a walk team together, but like being on the committee, helping with logistics, volunteering day of. You're absolutely right. And I just really wanted to thank you for everything you do for the committee and for the walk. And like I said, I was there. You made that experience really, come to life. When you were talking about, during the Promise Garden ceremony, you were talking about your why and so many things that were happening during the year, going from, COVID virtual to, an in-person event. Is a challenge for any organization, and it's volunteers like you that really make it happen. So,
oh, thank you very much. It's my honor. It's my pleasure. And I kind of feel like it's my duty. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So here's the stumper question that gets people sometimes. Is there anything that you would love to share with the audience about the walk that you haven't already said? Because you said a lot in the short time they've already spoke. Is there anything that you really want to really hammer home about the walk to end Alzheimer's?
I believe that when you're facing a devastating diagnosis of yourself, of a loved one, supporting a friend, Alzheimer's is just such a daunting black veil, and that's I'm assuming what it feels like. It's what my family felt, and the walk to end Alzheimer's kind of helps lift that veil and let in a little bit more light. You see that you're not alone. You see that there are so many things that the Alzheimer's Association can do as far as support groups, helping the caregivers. I mean, it's just they do so much more than just have this walk. So I think that you get a little bit of a peek into that, but I really feel like you then become a part of a community, and to be able to face this challenge and not be alone, and then to not feel silly for having this hope, because this disease has been around for a long time, and no, we don't have a cure yet, and I do emphasize yet, but everyone there has that hope that there will be, and it will be in time for their loved one. So you don't feel silly having that hope all by yourself, because we all share that same hope. And I think that's really the best part about the walk. Now that, I think back to my former answer, that's my new answer, is the hope that the walk instills and that we can share.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thank you so much, Shelby, for sharing your story and sharing your thoughts on the walk to end Alzheimer's.
Well, thank you for all that you do, and I really appreciate you having me.
That's another way you can help. Sign up and come to the gala and celebrate with us next May.
So I know I said that this was just a nice casual conversation. There's no stumping questions, but this is the question that usually stumps everybody, and it's is there anything else that you personally would like to share that we haven't really touched on?
One thing that's been going through my head, and this might seem a little strange, I suppose, is we were talking about the volunteers. And years ago, I met a volunteer educator for the Alzheimer's Association, and he would go where he was needed. And what stuck with me as he would describe where he was going, the kinds of places he was going, was how wonderful it is that people want to know more. They want to help. Law enforcement. Could you come in and just give us how do we deal with a motorist who's lost and you don't know who this person is, but they, what are some signs how do you deal with somebody who has known dementia and is lost? How can local businesses better serve their customers who have Alzheimer's, the banks and the restaurants and the corner stores, libraries, and and the reason I bring this up is because when my dad was diagnosed, he didn't sit in a room and never go out anymore. He continued, and even as the disease progressed, and clearly his cognitive function was not, didn't allow him to do as much, he was still a part of his neighborhood and his community. And I'll always be grateful that there's so much interest in the community and how to help, because it impacts everybody. The disease impacts everybody, which is another reason to volunteer, because in some strange way we're all in it together.
No, you're right.
So I just wanted to thank all of the members of the community who learn about Alzheimer's and are determined to help the people and the families who are impacted by this disease.
Thank you.
Maureen, I think that's such an important point that you made. And if you think about when someone is diagnosed, often they believe it's the end of a journey. But it's really not. It's the beginning of a new journey. Yeah. And there are countless opportunities to have a good life with dementia, to have purpose in your life, to have meaning in your day. If you think about all of the social engagement opportunities that the Alzheimer's Association offers and provides, but there's also so much that's out there for the taking for families. And what we often find is when their loved ones are showing some of the signs, family members tend to become incredibly isolated, which makes it even more challenging, because then that can exacerbate issues with depression. The social isolation is just, as we all experience very personally over the last couple of years. So we really try to encourage people, get out, go in the community, participate in things. There is also a program called Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body. And this program is an educational offering that we deliver on a regular basis. And there is now evidence to show that if you change your lifestyle during your life, even when you've been diagnosed, especially when you've been diagnosed, you could potentially reduce your risk of having that Alzheimer's journey happen faster. And so those lifestyle factors could include social engagement. They include the Mediterranean type diet and other things like that. So we always encourage our families to find those moments in your days, moments of joy, moments of happiness. Just even yesterday, there was another news article out on the AP about a 93-year-old man with dementia, and his daughter decided to play the piano, and then you just watch the reaction. So try to find those. They could be just moments. They don't have to be hours and days. They could be literally just a moment in time to celebrate something that might have made that person happy before, and to help to tap into the recesses of their memory, to be able to bring those memories to the forefront and allow whoever is part of that person's journey on the partnership to celebrate that for a moment in time, because that may be the only moment you get for a while, and you don't want to miss it.
Oh, yes.
So I would agree with you. This community has been very welcoming and open-armed. There are so many in our community that do want the information. They want the knowledge. Our first responders are tremendous in trying to understand what they might be facing if they walk into someone's home or see someone on the street that's quite elderly. And then they can perhaps size up, okay, what is the issue that I'm actually looking at right now, so it doesn't end up becoming a catastrophe.
want to hear your stories. We want to hear how you're being impacted. Obviously, call the 1-800 number if you need help or you suspect that you need help. We're here for you as an organization. And I know each one of us at this table is willing to talk to you and get you to the right service. But we do want to hear your stories. And if you have something to share about your loved one, I would love to hear it. And that, again, the ways to contact us will be in the show notes. I want to thank you both for being on That Sounds Terrific. You all do terrific work.
As do you.
Thank you so much. And again, Maureen, Teresa, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.